All right. Let's get into it. Well, it's still Friday.
Yeah, again. It's Friday again.
Crazy.
I know. But yeah, so all our episodes come out on Fridays. And this Friday, we have a spectacular guest on.
Where?
I'm looking.
He just walked outside. No, I'm kidding.
I filled in.
So we have Omar Avilla, or Crispy.
No one cost me that. Come on, man.
Crispy.
Yeah.
Who's has been a staple in the veteran community for years at this point.
Sure.
But unlike our previous guests, this one smokes cigars.
Yeah. So I think we met about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yep.
And it was right after we started Warfighter.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I think
kidding.
we met at SHOT Show, in SHOT Show.
Yeah.
And then at the trailer release party for Range 15,
yeah,
is when we kind of.
No, it wasn't the trailer release. It was we released.
Oh, it was a trailer release.
It was one of those. Yeah, you
yeah.
probably remember more than I do. Yeah, sure. That was a blurry night for me.
Yeah, me too. Those are good. I liked it back then though. Like the whole community was just fun back then.
Yeah, it was.
Now I don't know. I don't want to say it's not as fun. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah.
I think we all grew up.
Yeah, I think so. Some of y'all did. Fuck you guys. Like we were just talking about that earlier. All my friends quit drinking, and like I'm just like, no, I can still.
Well, hangovers hurt worse.
They do, man.
Well,
like as
you don't
get
need to drink that
older.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm going to stick with this, and I've said it my whole life. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a stopping problem.
Yep.
I drink
touches
phenomenally.
your lips, it's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you follow me on social media in the summers, you see how many fucking IVs I get. And that's just from being outside and pushing myself to go out and do things. Dude, drinking just makes it worse.
Yeah.
So and for me, I'm not against it. Like I have a beer here and there. We just went to Worst Fest.
Yeah.
In New Braunfels with my wife and some friends. And, next thing you know, we had 4 pictures. I was like, holy shit. Damn, okay. But the next day, dude, I wasn't hungover. It just sucked.
Yeah.
Rehydrating my body to where I'm functional. Because in between, I'm just cramping and, man, it sucks.
What do you think dehydrates you worse, beer or whiskey?
Beer.
Really?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And beer makes me feel like shit. I'm a 3
I'm
beer
not a
kind
bit,
of guy.
yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge beer drinker just because the fact of it gets you bloated.
Yeah.
And then I just don't like the hangover. With whiskey, if you have whiskey and water.
Yeah. There's no sugars.
No, there's no sugar
Yeah.
and there's no hangover.
Yeah.
And then I did it right because I have a CPAP. So I'll put that bitch on at night and dude, I wake up with no hangover. I'm like, woo, let's go.
Yeah.
But it's just the hassle of trying to rehydrate. And I'm fucking 37. I'm not 30, 29 whenever when we first met.
I remember 37. Those are good days.
That's when you guys first met.
Yeah. So
I was 37 when we met.
So I like waking up and going to the gym, getting my day started, coming home and then going on. And when you wake up with a hangover, I just can't do it, man. You start making every excuse. This hurts or that hurt, or you're in bed and you lose a day. And that's one of the things I hate the most is it's losing a day. Because I feel like I have this chip on my shoulder. I don't only have to live my life. I got 30 other guys that we lost whose lives I live for.
Right.
So throwing one away, I'm such a dirtbag.
So let's get into who you are, because I think our audience might be just cigar community, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might not know who you are. So let's back up and start with who you are, what you did, what you do now, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I was originally born in Mexico and came to the U.S. when I was about 8 going to 9. Now I was 7, 8 going. Yeah, around 7 going to 8. And grew up down in Brownsville, Texas.
Right.
So I was down there my whole life. didn't speak English at all. I mean,
so do you still speak Spanish?
Oh yeah. It's my first language. I always tell people like
that's perfect when we take you down to
Nicaragua. Oh, dude, I'll translate. Yeah,
all right, perfect.
Oh yeah.
You just paid your way.
Nick is always like, oh, I know Spanish, and then I get that I was like, you don't know Spanish.
I don't know Spanish.
Nick's Spanish is great.
Yeah. It is
the whitest
Spanish.
It is.
I'm like, get out the way, Nick. I got this. And then he's just like, I hate you. But yeah, grew up down there. And pretty much was like, grew up in all American, like all Texan, growing up, like would help our buddy's father, like, bringing up cattle,
right.
Do all that, dove hunt. And then got very interested in sports right off the bat. I'm not your average Mexican. I'm 6'2", was like 220 by, I don't know, when I was like in 8th grade,
right.
just big old boy. And it was crazy. I started playing football, and as a 7th grader, I made the B team.
Okay.
And I was pissed because I was like, I want to be on the A team.
Right.
So busted my ass, made the A team in 8th grade, and it was like something clicked and excel very fast. And by the end of my 8th grade year, there was multiple high schools showing up to the games, wondering what high school I was going to go to.
Yeah.
And so, it was crazy. I mean, if you don't know Texas football,
fucking Texas football.
It's fucking Texas football. Like, had these coaches like, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. I was like, what the hell? And I ultimately ended up going to Porter High School, where all my friends were going. So I was like, I'm not separating from my buddies. Like, this is who I'm playing football with.
Yeah.
And so I ended up down there, and it was awesome. Like, did really well. Started playing varsity since my freshman year, which to me, I was like, I haven't been playing football that long, and I'm already here. Fast forward to like
what position did you
I was a defensive end.
Yeah.
Defense. And I played a little bit of tight end too. So I had a couple of touchdowns here and there. But fast forward, I'm a senior, and I was a sophomore in high school when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And at that point, like I already had universities kind of showing a little bit of interest.
Right.
Like my coach is making a reel for me to send to the universities and stuff. And there was a little bit of interest. So 9/11 happens, and 2 weeks before 9/11 happened, I became a U.S. citizen.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like,
really?
yeah.
So it really hit home.
It really did. So like, the whole, people are always like, you signed a blank check to this country. I feel like it was the opposite. Like the country signed a blank check to me and my siblings, and was like, and my mother, and it was like, you can become anything you want to become in this country.
Right.
Here you go. And so when 9/11 happened, as a sophomore in high school, like in history class, I'm sitting there crying along with a few other students, like, and had this anger inside of me, like, dude, you just attacked us. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm ready to go fight. And so that was always in the back of my head. But as a sophomore, junior year went on, sophomore year went on. I mean, senior year comes along, and all of a sudden I have multiple offers to go play at all these other places.
Yeah.
And at the same time, some of my buddies who were seniors when I was a sophomore playing football with them were coming back from the war. Like they were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and going out and having a cookout and drinking some beers and talking to them, like, hyped me up even more. And all of them were infantry. Some went from infantry to Ranger battalions. And then one of our buddies went to CAG.
Right.
Yeah. And then a couple others were SAF dudes. And I was like, that's what I want to fucking do.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to do. And so they worked me up, and senior year came along, and, everybody was kind of like, well, where are you going to school? Because our quarterback had signed, Billy Garza had ended up going to Illinois alumni. And so he was playing football up there, and everybody's like, well, where are you going? And I was like, I don't know where I'm going. Like, I don't know yet. And so we're having like the end of school party or whatever. And their fight breaks out, and I don't even remember. I threw a beer can. I was like, hey, stop it. And broke the fight. And I got arrested for that.
Yeah.
Like, apparently, like, the kid who got his ass kicked, his uncle was like a detective, and he came for like all the popular guys that were there. And someone said I threw a bottle, and the other guys jacked him up. He was jacked up, and I could separate him. And he saw me when I was separating him. So I guess he thought that I was beating his ass too. Oh. And so I got arrested for that. And we went to court, and I was like, I didn't do anything. And so they dropped the charges and stuff. And at the time I was like, you know what, dude, this is small town shit. I ain't about it. I'm not going to go play football somewhere. Like, I want to join. So that kind of came back up, and I was like, screw this. And I had, they already had lined up for me to go check out TCU.
Okay.
Go to San Marcos.
Right.
Texas State had offered me, and then a random school in like South Dakota or some shit.
Yeah.
And for me, like I wanted to be a Longhorn.
Right.
Like I was, if UT would have came at me,
Right.
that's what I would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have not joined the military, but
Right.
even though TCU is a great school, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. Like toward the facilities, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But it was just going to be such a burden on my parents, how much money they were still going to have to pay with me getting a scholarship. Like
Right.
TCU is expensive. It's a
Yeah.
private school.
Yeah.
And so I took all that into consideration, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going into the Army. And our recruiter, Steve Nash, was a good friend of ours. He played basketball with us all the time and whatnot. So I came up to him and was like, hey, man, I want to join. And he was like, why don't you just go play football? Like, he was super
That's
blunt
a
about
good
it.
recruiter.
Yeah,
That's a good
he was a
recruiter.
friend. Like
Yeah.
he was a friend, 100%. He's like,
You should
like,
probably go play football.
he's like, dude, you're like on the front of the newspaper quite a bit. Like you're a good athlete. Like you should go play football. And I was like, no. And so we had a conversation, went back and forward. So I went into the recruiting office June 6th. June 26th, I was on a plane to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Nice.
Yeah. So I ended up joining, became a grunt, had a 18 X-ray contract, the whatever, and was going to go to my unit first, and then follow up with that, and end up at First ID 126 out of Germany. And dude, as soon as we get there, it was like so quick. Like, all right, we're going on deployment. I was like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So put everything to the test. I mean, the first time I had ever been on a plane was from San Antonio to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then the next plane I'm in is like, I'm going to Iraq. Like, holy shit. Well, I ended up in Germany, but then Iraq. I was like, holy shit, but yeah, I ended up joining, and probably 11 months into the deployment, I was hit with an IED, 200-pound deep buried IED. And, as a result of it.
And this is in Iraq?
In Iraq, yeah. Out of me, Iraq. Ended up sustaining 75% burns to the body. And then 9 years after limb salvage, I ended up amputating my right leg below the knee.
Right.
And then it was crazy, man. Then
So how long were you in the Army when that happened? 11 months or 12 months?
Yeah, about 12 months.
12 months.
Yeah. Something. It was super short,
right.
Which fucked me up because like I'm at the hospital laying there, right? And this is probably 7 months into being in an induced coma.
Right.
I finally wake up, I'm coming out, like, I'm still in a wheelchair and whatnot. So I was like, I want to go check my email, my AKO or whatever. And so I opened it up and I had orders to report to Fort Bragg for SFAS. No. And I'm like, and that even made it worse for me. I was like, I was so pissed. And so I had to call and be like, hey, I'm not going to show up. And
can I postpone the start?
Yeah. So I'm laying there and I'm calling up like, hey, I'm not going to make this. The guy who picks up the phone is like, he's 7 or some shit. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? You're not going to have the courtesy of showing up and even trying. Like, what's wrong with you? You gave up this fucking spot. And I'm like, I was like, listen here, fucking dirtbag. Like, I was blown up. I'm in the fucking hospital. I can't even use my hands. My dad's holding the fucking phone. Like, fuck you, you piece of shit. And then she's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And I'm like, it's okay. So spend from 2007 to 2010, I spent it here at Brooke Army Medical Center.
That's why you don't want to give up days with the hangover.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's part of the reason.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So, and then as a result of it, I was in the vehicle with 5 of us. Only 3 of us made it out. We had 2 KIAs. And then before that, we were the hardest hit unit in Iraq since any unit since Vietnam.
Right.
And so we lost a lot of guys, and, it was a really, really bad deployment. And, when I got to the hospital, man, I was trying to find my purpose, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Moved back to Brownsville, bought a house. I thought I was going to stay down there forever.
Right.
And quickly realized that, oh shit, I need another surgery. Oh, I just got an infection and they don't know how to deal with it down here.
Yeah.
And so it was,
you're making trips from Brownsville to San Antonio,
like on a weekly basis.
It's like 5 hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I was like, holy shit. And then in between that, I was gaining weight, fucking drinking too much, going out. Like, I was just going down the typical veteran rabbit hole where of like, it's either I'm going to be a piece of shit and blame everybody else for what's going on with me, or I need to switch this. And at the time I was still like smoking cigarettes pretty hard. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And up until now, I don't remember if it was a dream or if it really happened, but I remember waking up in the middle of the night and couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. And so that scared the shit out of me. So I quit smoking cold turkey. And I remember one of my buddies down there, Rod, had opened up a gym called Hard Knocks. It was a strength and conditioning gym.
Okay.
And so he invited me. He's like, dude, come in, come watch this. And so I went to a competition, a strongman competition that they had. And I was like, yo, that looks fucking badass. I can do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, come in and show me. And I was like, training. All right. So first day I walk in is deadlifting day. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I start warming up with 45s. And I mean, this is pretty light. Next thing you know, I'm deadlifting 405. And everybody's like, and then I was like, what's up? And everybody's like, dude, that's 405. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I was like, I can go heavier if y'all need me.
I know.
To.
Is this not enough?
I didn't know. And he goes, dude, I train guys in here that can't even deadlift that. And I was like, oh, snap. And so that iron bug hit me. The next thing you know, I'm in Las Vegas breaking world records for deadlifting. So I ended up deadlifting 705.
Jesus Christ.
My heaviest, and the most I ever benched was 500.
Wow.
And it was all, post injury and everything. And I found it and I was like, this is dope. And then that's when my social media started growing. So like Arnold Schwarzenegger hit me up. He's like, yo, we got to do something. And I ended up going to the Arnold and, have selfies with him. And then Branch Warren out of Dallas was like, you need to train with me one of these days. I was like, hell yeah.
Nice.
And then between that, Brandon Lilly, who's a renowned freaking powerlifter, was like my coach. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then Eddie Conan hits me up and I'm like, the GOAT. Like, if you know about powerlifting, Ed Conan is the GOAT. Like, this dude at 242 was squatting 1,000 pounds and was like benching he's the GOAT. And I was like, holy crap. And slowly my social media started growing. And I realized, I was like, this is my purpose. Like, I want to motivate others to show them that, like, yeah, you may have a disability, but it doesn't necessarily mean this has to stop you. It's right. It's fuck the disability.
So when you were in football, I'm sure you lifted.
Yeah.
What were you doing back then?
Man, I remember benching like 315. And then I remember squatting, like I was one of the few guys in the football team, like squatting 600 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was 17, 18-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So
I didn't know what kind of physical therapy fucking they put you through.
Has.
Not that.
It's like, damn.
Not that, because like we were like trying to come up with like different legs on how I can lift and do all that.
Right.
Like, so they were always trying to come up with that. And it was interesting. Like there was times where like, I was like, hey, I broke another leg. Can we make another one? And they're like, yeah. So it was always like,
by saying you broke another leg, it was
prosthetic.
Yes.
Yeah, another prosthetic, not my leg. Yeah. So it was always like trials and errors. And then we finally got it right. And then that was it. But yeah, there was a lot.
So you probably didn't appreciate it before a lifting competition when somebody said break a leg.
No, yeah. Like, no, we don't want to do that today. But yeah, and then I just kind of started everything else, man. And I found it and I was like, then I slowly got into motivational speaking and I started with small venues like high schools and middle schools and things like that. And next thing I find myself in New York City speaking to, all the high end guys at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and, McDonald's. And I was like, what is my life right now? So that kind of came along with it. And I started building a little network with that. And then social media kept growing and growing. And I just, at that point, I found it to be very therapeutical for me to share my life with people and show them, yes, I have accomplished all these things, but I dealt with this and there was obstacles along the way. Like, it's not like one day I was like, I'm the most positive guy in the world. And that's it. Like, you know, like there's levels to that to get there.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I mean, it's not like every day is a great day. Like you're going to have shitty days, but I just choose to grab that shitty day and turn it around and try to make it into a positive and go from there. Cause man, I want to break that stigma in the civilian world that they think every vet's fucked up in the head.
Right.
And they're like, do we got to worry about PTSD?
Yeah.
Do we got to worry about, what we say or don't say? Like, I want to break that barrier and be like, look, we're just like you.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of trauma, but we are capable of functioning with that trauma. Like,
And I challenge a civilian out there to offend somebody like us.
I mean, it's fun. I'd be okay with that statement here, but I've seen the new generation of guys, and I think that's very possible.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then I challenge the younger veterans to
Grow up
be
here.
offended.
not be offended.
Yeah, we're grow up here. That might be offensive.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, and then that turned into like meeting you guys, meeting, I've known Matt for a while, and then meeting Evan and all those guys and just getting involved with that. And and it was great for me, man, because I was chasing that high of a firefight on so many different levels. I bought a motorcycle and I was driving 160 down the highway. I went skydiving. I mean, I got into scuba diving. Like everything that I can think that was a rush, I was looking for.
It's so hard once you get out of that environment to find a purpose, but a purpose with some goddamn excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that excitement, man. That's what we all fucking want. And it's so hard to find.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just all led into everything else, man. And I just been very blessed to have, the following that I have, because I'm able to, set my own schedule and do my own work and then just kind of have a little bit of free time to do all these awesome things. And I love sharing it with people and showing it either on my Instagram or YouTube channel and sharing all those experiences with them. And not only that, showing the veteran community that like, look, you can do it too. Like just get out of that fucking couch, quit your fucking whining and being at home and just drinking and throwing your life away. Go fucking do something awesome and then have a drink.
Yeah.
And go fucking, show people that you can and that this disease bullshit that you've made up in your head thinking that you're done needs to end. Like you have so much to offer everybody that it's a shame that you're at home throwing your life away.
I think, you said you have so much to offer everybody. I think for me, it's like you have to figure out you have so much to offer yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to do that before you're able to offer something to everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to get your own shit straight.
Yeah.
And before you can.
100%, and that's one of those things where people are always like, oh my God, you're so motivating. You give so much back, la, 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 la. But before that, I worked on myself.
Yeah.
I got my shit straight, got my ducks in a row. And then I was like, okay, now I can help someone else. Because if you're struggling with something and you're giving your whole effort to helping someone else without putting yourself first, which may sound selfish, but it's not.
It's not.
Then what good are you telling this guy like, hey man, you need to fix yourself like this. You need to move forward like this. And you're having the same fucking problems and you don't do it yourself.
Yeah, it's like, you go do this, but don't pay attention to my life.
Exactly. You're being a fucking hypocrite. Yeah. Like fix yourself first.
I've said it before. Focus on your own yard before you talk shit about your neighbor's yard.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great fucking example. I love that.
So you're a cigar smoker?
I am.
Which is awesome.
I
think that's part of the reason we met.
Yeah. Did Scott tell you the first time we met at the Article 15 trailer fucking release? So I was with veteran royalty at the time. I mean, still now they are royalty, but Leroy Petrie, who's a Medal of Honor recipient, Flo, Medal of Honor recipient, and Clint Rumachet, fucking studs, bro.
Yeah.
And we had I can't remember who bought it. So I don't remember. But we had a Jameson gold at our table.
Yeah.
And we're all like sipping on it or whatever. And Scott comes over and like, can I have some? I was like, yeah. And so, we pour him some, we start talking. And, his face when he tasted it, he's like, the hell is this? And then he picks up the bottle. He goes, oh shit. Like, that's expensive. And I'm like, yeah.
So the last couple podcasts we've talked about it because I've talked about my anniversary gift that my wife got me a bottle. They quit making it in 2019. And then before that, John said, because we talked about sharing cigars and booze and how we don't like to do it because you never know. Saving,
not share.
Saving. So as soon as I got that bottle, I shared some with John and on the podcast. And so it's funny that you bring that story up, but yeah. And I think, at the time we were a brand new company. We didn't know shit about shit.
Yep.
We didn't know anything. We were figuring it out, but I think we tossed around some funny ideas of a cigar with you at one point.
Yeah, we did. And then COVID hit. And then, I remember that.
But I think we were going to call it the burnt as fuck.
It was. It was going to be a really dark cigar. It was going to be a dark cigar. Yeah. And I remember we talked about it because we were like, we got to go down to Nicaragua. You pick up the lead. I was like, hell yeah. So I think maybe in the future we do it again. Yeah. But we should definitely follow up and do it because, and it was awesome because when I started smoking cigars, my wife's Cuban. And her dad's like, her family's from Cuba,
right?
And she was born in Miami or whatever. But every time that we went to go visit her dad would just grab me and he's like, let's go outside. And, we sit outside and start smoking a cigar. And that was his way and my way of catching up and talking and, all that. So I started really getting into it. And then you guys were sending me cigars and stuff. And then I don't remember what the hell I was doing, but I was doing a live and I was smoking a cigar. And then all of a sudden I don't remember what it was called, but somebody on there was like a big aficionado of cigars and was part of a cigar club.
Yeah.
And then and I have my P.O. box listed on my bio of Instagram. And I go to the post office and I go pick up my little packages in here. And next thing I know, this girl hands me 2 giant boxes. And I'm like, the fuck is that? And then I open it up and it's cigars.
Jesus.
Like 250 cigars. And I'm like, I don't fucking have a humidor that big. So I'm like,
what am I supposed to do with these?
Sure. So I'm like, fucking Amazon. I order one and I stack them all in there. They were so packed in there. And little by little, when friends were coming over, you want a cigar? You want a cigar? And I started giving them to people. And then it's just become that, man. So like when I go hunting now or anything, sitting by a campfire, I'll bust out a cigar and smoke a cigar. Or, like this last time that we were down in Honduras with Nick and Warfighter Scuba, after we got done scuba diving, sat in the back in the porch and just smoked a cigar and just kind of decompressed. And I was like, this is awesome. And so, I mean, I've been a fan of cigars for a while now.
Nice. And you're a big gun guy.
Yeah. It's kind of translated over, right, from being in the service to that. And, I always tell people, I was like, look, I was born in Mexico. I know what the violence is like down there. And people can't defend themselves.
Right.
They have no Second Amendment. And that is why there's so much fear in Mexico. There's so much corruption. There's so many killings going on is because of people can't defend themselves.
Right.
So I was like, I need to help protect the Second Amendment here in this country because we have so many people trying to get rid of it. And I slowly, I was like, no, this is what I do. And started doing gun reviews and started going to the range. And to me, it was another therapeutic way to get out there and forget about everything else and just focus on that. And it just kind of took over, man. And I love it. I love learning the science of guns, how they work. Like, what is it chambered in? What does it does? What is this gas do? I mean, I've built so many ARs now that I've lost count.
Compared to what you were taught in the army about guns to what you know now.
Shit.
Yeah.
So Scott had a gun store before we started Warfighter.
Oh, no shit.
And I ended up moving out there and working for him at the gun store.
That's Arizona?
So,
no, this is
Nebraska.
in Nebraska.
So when we met, I owned Silencer Headquarters. Was the name of my shop. So
nice.
And but I remember I might have been there a week and same boat. Like I knew what the army taught me, which is nothing.
No.
It was fuck all.
Yeah.
And a customer came in and he wanted to get a drop-in trigger and put in his AR. And so Scott turns around, he hands me the AR, he hands me the drop-in trigger. He goes, hey, go throw this trigger in. And I handed it right back to him. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And he's like, what? He's like, you don't know how to change how to trigger in an AR? And I'm like, fuck no. They told me when I was cleaning an AR to do all this, but do not touch that.
every time when I was in the military, I would pull out all my trigger kit because you know how much easier it is to clean it that way.
Yeah. And so I asked Scott, and I'm like, just show me how to do this once. And you know, I'm a quick learner, and I'll figure it out. We'll go from there. And so he's like, fine. And literally takes the gun, puts it on the bench, pops the pins, pulls it. And I was just like, that's it? I'm like, this is what I was not allowed to touch. Yeah. I'm like, and this is like, it would have been so much easier.
It was.
That just shows you how much faith the Army had in
you. But yeah, it was.
But it's way different. Like, I mean, like, so, and that was something that bothered me, right? Because when I started doing gun reviews and stuff, people were asking me like, well, you being a military guy, like,
you have to know about this.
Yeah. Do you know the twist rate of this barrel? And I was like, wait, what?
Barrels have twist rates?
What is that? Like, is it a 1 to 6 or 1 to 8? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I was like, oh, dude, I'm doing this justice to everybody. And so I was so close to going to gunsmithing school. I just couldn't do it because it was in Denver and I didn't want to move out of Texas. But just it just pretty much dove my freaking face right into it. And I was very lucky that at the time in Dripping Springs, a friend of mine had started a gun company. And they had CNC machines. They had everything in house. So I learned how to run CNC machines. I learned how to fucking make lowers and uppers.
So I used to do that. I used to own part of Bighorn Arms or Zermon Arms, and so we did precision rifle actions.
Oh, badass! Yeah. So I learned everything about ins and outs of an AR. Right. So I was like, shit. So I was building them.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I was building them at home, like as a side project. So I started learning everything, like, you know, between, you know, gas and piston and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And then just slowly the addiction grew. And then, you know, I was buying books and I was just sitting there like, and then it just turned into like, okay, I know what I know.
Yeah.
And that's it. But yeah, it's super cool, man. Cause like now I have friends who've never shot guns or anything. And I take them hunting and I take them shooting.
Right.
And they learn and they're like, I watch those eyes. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So when I owned the gun shop one time, we had it was after one of these shootings or an election or something where there was a big gun thing.
There was it was local in Nebraska. And this guy was going around robbing all kinds of stores, armed robbery.
Oh.
And it was for like a week and they couldn't catch the dude. Yeah. This was, I don't know, 6 years or 7 years ago now, maybe even longer.
Yeah, longer ago.
But you put out.
No, this is different. You didn't work for me then. This is when I was in Columbus yet. But so this reporter came out and interviewed me, you know, and I'm like, I kind of want to see how you edit this before you air it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, have you ever shot a gun before? She's like, no. I'm like, let's go to the range. And I used to have all kinds of machine guns, right? And so we went out to the range and I just let her and her camera guy shoot some machine guns. Like I had a P90, which she really dig.
Yeah.
And
they shot
like $400 in ammo, right?
Damn.
But by the end of it, her cameraman is literally filming her shooting a machine gun with her phone. Like they were having that much fun and they just wanted their own pictures.
Yeah, to show their friends.
And they fucking loved it. And so she went from kind of anti-gun to like machine guns are fun, in one range sitting. So that was kind of fun for me. But
yeah, I mean, that's always cool to watch. But yeah, I mean, people don't understand. Like, it's just, man, it bothers me when you sit there and you're like, you know, I'm looking for this gun that holds 100 guns in the bolt. And I'm like, what the hell did you just say? Like, if you're going to come at guns and you want to ban them, make sure you have enough knowledge to know what it is that you're trying to ban. Not jump on there and be like, oh, this 700 clip holds and it shoots, 400 rounds in a second. Like, fuck, the Gatling gun doesn't even do that. What are you talking about?
So as a responsible gun shop owner, I refuse to sell people guns occasionally.
Yeah.
One of them was, I had a guy come into I think I was at a gun show. Guy come up to the table and he's like, how many times does that gun shoot? I said, well, as many times as you pull the trigger. He's like, no, how many times does it shoot? I said, I don't understand your question. And then he pointed he grabbed a magazine off the table and he's like, how many times does it shoot? I'm like, how many rounds does the magazine hold? He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's not for sale. Like, I'm sorry, it's not for sale.
You might want to do a little more research there, buddy. Like, yeah. I mean, Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. It's just, it blows my mind sometimes how these politicians have no clue what the fuck they're talking about
at all.
But all of a sudden they're fucking stock geniuses.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, look at me. My portfolio is fucking $10 million. Wow, bro.
Yeah.
No insider trading there at all whatsoever.
Nope.
Yeah. But
So what are you up to these days?
man, honestly, I'm still doing the motivational speaking. I'm focusing a lot on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to put out as much funny content as I can on Instagram. And then just kind of helping out. And I recently became a board member at Warfighter Scuba.
Right.
Got back into that. I hadn't done it in a while. So now that I'm scuba diving again, and not only that, my wife got certified. So now
That's awesome.
I have a built-in scuba partner at home.
Nice.
And so that, man, and just focusing on giving back to the community and still like helping out as much as I can. And just trying to live life, man.
Cool. Well, where can people find you?
Every social media outlet that you can think of, Crispy 11B.
11B.
They're all the same.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah,
Good
thanks
to
for
see you
having me.
again.
Yeah, likewise.
So we'll sign off and cheers with our
We're
non-alcoholic drinks.
hydrating.
This might be the only 2 episodes in a row that Scott's not drinking.
It's
I don't
fucking
know.
seriously.
Well, it's not even noon.
We got one more this afternoon. He'll be drinking on that one.
All right. We'll see you guys later.